Yeah, I just. I calling the North Pole City Council meeting of August 21st, 2023 to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mrs. Clock. Here. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Skips.
Here.
Mrs. Welch. Here. Mr. Jacobson,
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor is excused along with Mr. DeCromer. As Mayor Pro Tem, I am conducting the meeting on behalf of Mayor Welch. We will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, after which the invocation will be offered by Councilwoman Chandra Clack. Please remain standing.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come before your throne as your servants to ask you to give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding in the leading that you would have us to do as you've appointed each and every person here for city council. I pray, Lord, for those that are sick, that you touch their bodies and that you have their spiritual bodies reach out to you to see your will in their lives right now. I pray, Lord, for those people in Hawaii, that you touch all of those people there one way or another and send loved ones and messages and food and anything else that they may need, that they may not be in need of, Lord, that you can help them in every strengthened way. And we pray for the fires that are taking place throughout the United States, that, Lord, you will find a way that you will quench those out and that people will be taken care of in every possible need that is needed at this point in time. We just thank and praise you for your guidance for the decisions that we'll make as your council. In Jesus Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. We have before us the approval of the agenda.
Who to approve the agenda?
Second,
Moved by Mrs. Welch, seconded by Mrs. Clack.
Move to amend?
Second.
By
Disappeared from me, sorry. Move to move our unfinished business. Item A, ordinance 2310, an ordinance of the city of North Pole, Alaska, to adjust the police department's budget to the agenda, to the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr.
Oh, you
Keller
did.
already seconded that. So
Oh, I thought.
any,
Do it hand in hand if you want.
any further discussion on the amendment? Please call the roll on the amendment.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
yes,
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
All right. On the agenda as amended, please call the roll.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
yes,
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Thank you. That moves us now on to the approval of the minutes from our meeting of August 7th.
Move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
Discussion? Any changes? Hearing none, please call the roll on the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes,
Mrs. Clock,
yes,
Mrs. Welch.
Yeah.
thank you for that. The minutes are approved. Communications from the mayor. I don't have any directly from the mayor, but I can say that as a result of being the city representative at the Borough Assembly meeting on August 10th, that Aaron Ojeski, who was the presiding officer after my report, approached me to be on Problem Corner today since Mayor Cruz is out of town this week. And so he was the guest host on KFAR Problem Corner. So I was on there today discussing the North Pole, City of North Pole challenges, the things that we have going on, the needs for a new fire station with Representative Mike Prax. He was kind of our technical assistant there, helping us. Also about our expansion of our water system due to the self-filling contamination, and also out in Moose Creek, the PFOS contamination. We talked about structuring of taxes, property taxes, and how there was one caller that was very concerned that property owners share an unfair burden of supporting the government. And it was great to chime in and say in North Pole, we try to find a balance by having a sales tax in which that the burden of the cost of providing government services is spread over a larger base and not just on property owners and business owners. And so I don't know if anyone listened to it, but I felt really positive that I was able to promote the good things that are happening here. We also talked about a variety of things in the borough and also in the city of Fairbanks. And if you haven't had a chance, recently in the newspaper, there was a article, Latitude 65 from July 22nd, 29th. This is former North Pole resident explores childhood through film. This young man, his mother was a teacher, Pat Grable, at North Pole Middle School. And when I was a teacher there, she taught 8th grade, and this is her son, Rob Grabo. And so he did a film called The Year of the Dog, a story about pulling through. It's kind of a heart-rending, touching story of overcoming drugs and different kind of challenges in his life, living throughout different parts of Alaska, not only here in North Pole, Fairbanks, but in the bush as a young man, and the things that caused him to have problems later on in life. So that was nice to see us right there, former North Pole resident, making a film about his life here in North Pole. And that will conclude my communications from the mayor. We'll move on to council member questions of the mayor. All right, I get off the hook easy tonight. All right, citizens' comments limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to come forward and speak on any issue? All right, candidates, this is an opportunity for you to campaign.
And shine. Will it be a perfect time to get up front so they can actually see you on screen? Okay.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone online?
There's not.
All right, with that, citizens' comments are closed. We'll now move on to communications from department heads. We will start off with Danny with Public Works, or City Services, I should say. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. First, I'll cover 3 special topics, and then I'll talk about each of the departments. For the combined heat and power plant, this effort continues to move forward as we're actively working with a firm that specializes in public-private partnerships and utilities financing, a firm called Harrison Street. We conducted meetings with them informally, and when I say we, both the mayor, Ms. Welch, and myself were out at Chena Hot Springs talking to them, and then we had formal meetings here on Monday, August 14th. They actually traveled to Alaska to conduct a site visit, and they are conducting internal meetings this week, and will present options on the project later this week or next week. And right now, this project remains at the brainstorming pre-coordination stage, and no commitments have been made by the city. As I've said before, we certainly would have the council involved in any decisions made by the city for commitments. And tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we have a combined heat and power meeting. We have this every twice each month via Zoom. And if anyone's interested in attending that meeting, let me know and I can send you the link. And again, it's a routine meeting, but we will talk about, again, some of the outputs from the meetings over the last week. For grant applications, we're continuing to actively seek grant assistance for our priorities. We submitted 2 in the last couple of weeks. The first one is a local cybersecurity grant program, and that's administered by the Department of Homeland Security. This aims to address cybersecurity risks and threats to information systems owned or operated by local governments. And if accepted, it's only $30,000, but really $30,000 is exactly what we need to look at our vulnerabilities for our utility system, looking at the SCADA system, how we're actually structured within to support the city's water and sewer infrastructure. So this is going to focus on that. And again, we put in for it. We have not received word yet if we'll be granted that. And the second one we put in for in the last few weeks it's called Protect, which is focus on resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation. Which part of that program is infrastructure changes to address things like flooding, to ensure that trafficability is maintained within a city. We have just recently, or we're completing a study of the city as far as how the drainage works during spring flooding and stormwater, and we're taking that information and we're applying it for this grant. This is about a $900,000 grant that would help us both redo some culverts, do some things throughout the city to make it so that we don't have the yearly spring flooding that goes on. And that one's administered by the Department of Transportation. And finally, we're also working on a grant to fund the design of the combined heat and power plant. This is being offered through the Alaska Energy Authority, and we'll keep you updated on that. But we are in the process of pulling that together. The good things about these grants is that once we've got a grant packet established for a specific project, we can shop that same packet to several different grants. So that's how we're approaching things. For the summer hires, some of you may have seen on Facebook, we had a luncheon late last week for our 3 summer hires, Derek Johnson and Tina Rahman, who both worked for Public Works, and then Owen, who's sitting behind me, who's at his last council meeting of his tenure as the municipal intern, and he worked here in City Hall. Derek Johnson will depart this week and return. He's a senior at Utah State University. Owen also will return to school as a senior at the University of Minnesota. And and Tina, our 3rd summer hire, will stay through the end of September, and she'll return to her home in Texas at that time. And all 3 worked very hard to accomplish much, to include maintaining the beauty of the city, installing rock walls, sealing and painting parking lots, painting doors, entrances to the city hall, conducting surveys, filing and reorganizing offices, and a variety of other visible and behind the scenes tasks, and we'll miss all 3 of them very much. For the building department, 3 Bears continues to make progress, and actually over the last couple of days, today they started clearing the lot, and they've been doing some pre-work on that area, but they've been working through the extensive but very necessary permitting process with the city, North Star Borough, DEC, and the Department of Transport and the Alaska Department of Transportation. The project is on track, and we do anticipate that they're going to make their goal of opening next year. For Public Works, beautification efforts continue again, but this is the end of the summer, and you'll see some changes. You'll see a shift from again maintenance towards the anticipation of the snow that will come this year. We have sent a snow removal request packet out, and if anyone in here knows places where that needs to go additionally to shop around for snow removal, we have our contract services that we are submitting for in order to get bids. We do have it on Facebook, our website, and in the News Miner. Bids are due September 1st, and we'll hope to have a recommendation for the council at the first meeting in September. The streetlight projects also continue to move forward, and we've signed a contract to begin the painting of the candy cane streetlights. Part of them will be painted this year and the rest will be painted next year. Also, as part of the overall streetlight improvement program, the candy cane streetlights will have new, more efficient lighting, which is actually going to save us, hopefully save us quite a bit of money on our electricity costs for those. And then the other light poles are still on track to be installed over the next few weeks. And finally, for the utility department, we've been receiving emails and calls from citizens regarding PFAS contamination. There is a spot on our website that talks about both with the Air Force way ahead. I think most of you may have gotten a letter from the Air Force that talks about the Air Force way ahead for PFAS and some contact information on that. And some of the citizens have asked about testing and about future city plans. We do test for PFAS within the water system. We have had no issues for PFAS within the city's water system or the city's sewer system, but we do monitor that. But we are in contact with the Air Force, and actually tomorrow we have a meeting with the Air Force civil engineer from JBER, who is sort of in charge of the overall PFAS response from the services. They asked for this meeting. Actually, they're in the area sort of talking to local governments, and they'll discuss their current monitoring efforts and other related topics. And the meeting is tomorrow, Tuesday at 2 p.m. here. And I think initially that certainly the mayor, if he's available, he was invited to come to that, and they wanted him there. I will be there along with the public, our utilities chief. And again, if anyone here is interested, it's not going to be over Zoom, but it will be here on site in City Hall at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And that's all I have pending questions from the council.
I had something I was gonna ask, but I gotta get on to a different topic. so.
Okay, I do have a question for you. You had mentioned about the summer hires and the organizing files and offices. I have heard comments about the office that our HR's person was in, which is currently occupied by Owen, and he will be departing. That office space is not being reserved for a new deputy city clerk and HR person.
Yeah, and actually, we spoke about that both to the mayor and the current clerk. I don't know if you've had conversations in those offices, but those offices it's very easy to hear through the walls in those offices. We looked at different options, and certainly having a space for the HR is very, very important. We have cleaned out this room here, and it's not completely ready, but the room that previously we had supplies in, we've cleaned that out, and we were thinking about using that as a break room, but it's also could be very functional as the HR and deputy city clerk location. So again, I think that we've that the mayor, myself, and Ms. Dion have talked about that, and I think that's the recommendation. But again, again, we do recognize that HR definitely needs a place to have those private conversations. And even a little bit further away from we call it the fishbowl, is actually not a bad thing, because it does allow for a more private conversation, because as you know, HR can delve into areas that don't need to be heard through the walls.
Thank you. I would just encourage you to probably delay any final decisions until we actually have that position filled. There are sound deafening things that you could certainly put up in the ceilings that muffle conversations without having to move them to a closet.
And just to be clear and to be transparent too, there is there was a recommendation from the mayor, and certainly I supported that we have the building department occupy the space over in that area. So again, there was some things that we do, and again, we can certainly look at
building department, what position
well,
is that?
the building department, all the building files, and also it'd be Melanie Swanson, and her hats that she holds as building department clerk, utilities accountant, she even works the citation aspect for the city, things like that. So there's quite a few things that she does, which there is times when she'll have to meet with builders as far as going over plans. We do it, some of it in my office, but there's a need for that in hers. So again, we will defer to the mayor and the council for the decision on that. And we'll follow that guidance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Wallace. For Fire Chief. Mr. Heineken. Chief Heineken.
Good evening, council members. Just a few things to go over tonight from the fire department. So our latest hire is started work on August 15th. Firefighter Gavin Fisher. He's a young man from the local area here. We're excited to have him on board. Put himself through the certification classes to be qualified for the job, applied and has had a good start so far. So we really look forward to watching him and his career grow with North Pole, and hopefully we'll have him for many years. So the pump transmission that we had ordered for engine 25 has arrived. It is here. So that's the first step to getting that engine back in service. The next step is getting it into a shop to where they can actually perform the repairs. Right now, we're working with a shop in town to try to get that scheduled in. They just don't know for sure if they're going to be able to get it in. So there's a couple different options. Not everybody works on fire apparatus. It's pretty specialized to have the equipment, mostly to have the equipment to even get those off the ground so you can adequately get underneath them. So hopefully we'll get confirmation on who's actually going to be doing the work on that this week in a time frame of when it'll be scheduled. Because we would love to get it back into service as quickly as we can. And then once it is back in service, we'll be able to start the decommissioning process for engine 24, which will eventually be going down the road to the city of Delta Junction, and they are anxiously awaiting it, I'm sure. And then the final thing I have for you tonight, if Melissa, if you could, I've got another PowerPoint. I hate to do this 2 meetings in a row. This one should be just brief. We did receive the finished pre-design for the new replacement fire station from Johansson Wing Architects. We're really happy with what they've provided. It took a lot to get to this point. It seems like it took a while to finally get this product, but it was a lot of back and forth trying to come up with a final product that would fit within the parameters of that lot. We have pretty confined space there that we actually have to work with. And so the goal here was to come up with a plan that would serve the city's needs for at least 40, 50 years. And like I've commented to other people, really for this location, I can't envision anything more needing for that location. Anything past this years later would be more satellite stations that would be needed. So this would kind of be a final version for our complex there at the North Pole Fire Department. We'll go through these slides really quick, and Melissa, I'll let you hit the next one there. So that is our current plot plan, kind of. You can see where the existing fire station is. And then across from it is the existing, I'm going to stand up. Hopefully they can hear me. So this is the existing fire station, with First Avenue, those streets, our training building, the small garage empty station, and then this is the classrooms and the weight room there. So it is, slide one second. This is the footprint of what we would be having built. And you can see the tremendous size difference and how much more space we would actually have. So what this plan overall does is it allows us to maintain the current fire station in operation that was being built. If we built to 100%, we'd be able to move into that fire station. And at that time, we would turn over the existing fire station building to Danny and Works to be able to occupy the fire station. Looked at expanding the fire station to try to meet those needs with the current building. It was getting very complicated, and they were giving us estimates of over $10 million 3 years ago. Cost effectiveness wise, for us to be able to get everything we needed in a fire station, and then also be able to provide another building for Public Works to move into that is much. That's how the building would actually fit into those two lots. And that was our struggle is not downsizing enough to fit on those two lots and be happy with what that lot is. This is the ground floor, the meat and potatoes are really what goes on the bay floors. These bays are actually deep enough where we have two fire trucks parked. Front. One back in and one back in front of that deep, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't run into problems in the future with storage of apparatus, trailers, the things right now would all be able to be stored inside. But most of the ground floor is, the kitchen, day room, gym, the normal operations, day-to-day operations our staff are going to be doing on that ground floor, on the stairway. Slide is the second floor, which this went back and forth for a while. This was going to be the third or fourth. Slide, once again, a vast majority of their responses are out of these dorms at that. So getting them one level down. 16 dormitories, well more than we need today. But looking into the future, looking into some of the things that we can take advantage of, that some of the other departments around us can do, like scholarship. And volunteers, having quarters for them to be able to. Final slide is the top floor. It is a 3-story. We were surprised we had to go 3 stories, but it was because of the footprint of the platform. That would be the office space in a training room. Plenty of offices to grow into the needs that we need, down the road. We absolutely envision this city. Fire marshal house. Fire marshals, deputy fire marshals, that type of stuff. Really excited about the plan. And this is just step one. For the public and everybody out there, this is our ability to start making plans to fund this. That's the hard step. Is this got us to the point that the very back page of the packet that I provided each of you has the cost estimates. It comes to $17.3 million is what they're estimating to build that today would be. Actually fairly pleased with that. I was expecting possibly even more. So not too terribly shocked with that number, but that gives us the game plan to where now we can really start looking for funding avenues. When something comes available and they're looking for a shovel ready project type of thing, we've got plans in place. We've got the basic floor plans that we can show and go look for grants or other funding sources. So that's all I had for you this evening, and I can take any questions.
Seeing no questions, I will make some comments. I love the fact that you have 3 stories there, and it's maximizing the real estate that you have, and then also provides an additional building that we need for warm storage of our public works equipment that right now we're constrained with how much we can purchase and store and operate. So that's great. When I spoke to Representative Mike Prox today, he was very interested in having a time where the city could meet with the interior delegation to express our priorities to them. And I did talk to him about the new fire station that we've outgrown the space and in providing EMT ambulance services to all of 99705 and the amount of equipment that we have and staffing. And so that's something that is high on our priority, and along with our main water supply system that we have. I would encourage the clerk to perhaps reach out to Mike Prox for a time where we could get on the schedule, because he said that the Borough Assembly schedules their time, the city of Fairbanks, and then all the special interest groups, Chamber of Commerce, start wanting to have special meetings with the interior delegation. And we get left out in the cold if we don't speak up. So Madam Clerk, if you could just kind of reach out to them and see what kind of days or scheduling options we might have. That way we could put together our priorities for the interior delegation sooner than later, rather than waiting to pass a resolution in November and hope to meet them in December and they're already booked out and don't have any time for us. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
All right. That brings us to our city clerk.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I do not have much for you today. Elections are going smoothly. We should have our ballot proof over here next week. We already kind of had a look at it, so it's looking good. I sent it to Danny to make sure that those propositions were correct. So that's looking good. I gave you guys an update already on the advertised positions. We do have 5 people applying for the city clerk and 6 for the deputy clerk / HR. So that is awesome. I'm super excited about that. I'd much rather pick the best of 10 people than the best of 2 people like we did last time. I do not have a training update for you. Nothing's changed since last time. That's all I got.
Questions of the city clerk? Yes.
What are the propositions that we have on there, by the way?
Oh gosh, you made me ask that.
We have the two propositions. Mr. Wallace can explain them. One is to take out a loan for a design of our main
Water
water
mains.
system.
Mhm.
And the other one, right, the PFAS forgivable loan, right. Take care of any PFAS contamination that we find in the city. We hired Wilson and Wilson to do testing, and I think they've identified some levels, but we're concerned that there might be others undetected. Is that it? Sorry.
No, no problem. Yes, we have the fire department contamination area. That Shannon and Wilson continue to run tests, and they do monitoring wells for that. And that's part of and again, the 2 items, as you mentioned, one of them is to try to get ahead of the PFAS issues that are out there, because we know it's most likely going to impact things within city limits as we go on. But we do have a known site that needs potentially remediation, but we're waiting for DEC's guidance or any directives from DEC on what we need to do with that site. But right now we're monitoring that site, and that particular initiative will help with that.
And that's the forgivable grant.
Yes.
And it was great to hear that you said earlier in your report that we test regularly for PFAS in our water system. That gives us great, I think, comfort and security that we're drinking safe water here, unlike other communities across the country that unknowingly have basically poisoned themselves over the years by drinking contaminated water. And I just recently read that there was, I think, several communities in Colorado, Denver area that started suing the company manufacturers of PFAS for damages. So I think I appreciate that we're being proactive in that and getting ahead of it and getting some funding to address any needs that we might have. Any other questions about the propositions, Mrs. Welch?
No, I'm just kind of curious, how are we gonna, how is it gonna be presented to the public? Because we know the importance of this. Sometimes the public see, oh, they want to borrow money, and how are they gonna pay? How are we gonna approach it to make the voters understand that this is an important temporary layout of money that's gonna be important for the future?
We've discussed that. I think one idea that we haven't, again, we were talking options to get the word out on this. And again, this is new territory for me, so we have to make sure we're doing these things properly, but doing a flyer with the utility bills, because those are the folks that are directly affected by this. Because these loans are focused on the water system and enterprise system. So only to pay these back, it would only be within the utilities budget to pay those back. It would be something that all of the taxpayers would have to burden or share the burden. So that was one option, and that's not one that I have talked outside of myself and Paul. So that's one option that we had out there that we thought that may get the word out. But I'd probably have to defer to the council and maybe even legal to determine how we communicate this in the proper manner. And it may just be fact sheet or information sheets, which we do have those on these and the importance of these. And even if you read the actual ordinance themselves, that those words in there are pretty succinct, and they actually do a decent job of describing what we're after. So, but again, if we do it, I want to make sure we do it the right way.
And there is a right way to do it, which is that if we are going to put any flyers out in our water utility bills or put anything up on our web, the Department of Elections requires us as a city council to fund those activities. So we're declaring that we are funding putting out information to influence the outcome of an election by presenting facts. Absent that, we're in violation of the election law to use city funds without publicly stating that we have authorized expenditure of funds to include information in the water bills, or to put information on our website, or to have pamphlets available, or to do meetings of that nature that incur any expenses.
So is that just like a disclaimer, like you see on the bottom of the flyers, or is that has to be a public meeting for us to authorize?
No, it would be a public meeting where it'd be just something on our agenda where we
Okay.
would say that, we would determine X number of dollars to do any of the ABC ideas that were just discussed briefly. It just is declaring that we are spending public funds for this reason, and it's totally legal and acceptable to do that. We just have to publicly authorize that and let people know. So, and there, you can contact the Division of Elections there. I think they might have guidelines on exactly how to do that.
May I offer one more for us to be a little proactive in this and not reactive. So is it possible that we could reach out to news channels or TV and offer interviews, or even maybe after that, then link it to Facebook, something to get the word out to multiple different avenues, to be a little more proactive rather than reactive to people getting it in the newspaper and going, what is this? And then have to
Absolutely.
call.
We can do a promotional, informational education campaign as part of that, doing all the social media and the news media, newspaper, TV, radio. But we just have to come up with a plan and a budget and approve it, and then we can move forward with that. I think, especially since you're getting calls about contamination in our city. Obviously, people have seen the information from Moose Creek and the Air Force Base and are concerned about, I think when we were considering the purchasing of the Howard property, about Kimberly Lake being contaminated, that there is some concerns about the safety of our water. So yeah, I think it's something we need to pursue.
There's definitely some areas that we can do that are very cost effective and not free. News stations probably want news, especially something as important to this. Not going to cost anything. So
That's what we
Just gonna-
should have, a public information officer person that's in charge of doing that, so that we can get one message out. And that's
So I'd encourage
you right now.
Danny and Melissa and whoever else can help just kind of come, gather ideas of what information and what format and how, and that's something that we could definitely want to put on our next city council agenda so that we can get that approved and get that inserted into our I don't know when the next water bills go out, what time of the month they go out. If we're gonna make the September mailing before the October election.
I think that it'll come out right before the election, so.
Okay.
Which again, I think it would be timely for that. But we'll look at options and I'll make sure, I'll talk with Madam Clerk, and we'll make sure that we're consistent with the guidance from the Division of Elections.
Would definitely be nice to have something that we all can share. Facebook and wherever else we are happy.
Oh, yeah,
be around.
elevator talks for all of us
Yeah,
have
it's-
talking
Yeah,
points.
so we definitely know. So when they come up and ask us, what in the world are you trying to do? Or why are you doing this? And how is it gonna work?
I agree
So
with
we
you.
need to be as
Informed
council-
and being able to explain it.
Thank you.
All right. I see that we have an officer from the police department. Is there anything that you want to share on behalf of the department? Okay, I didn't want to miss out on the giving you the opportunity to say whatever you need to say.
Say thank you to the council, and I appreciate you all very much.
All right, thank you. You're
Slow
welcome.
down on the highway, right?
That's right.
I read that there's going to be an increased surveillance of the highways between now and Labor Day for speeders, so to get people to start driving at slower speeds.
For that as well.
I'm in the morning crowd and it's pretty amazing how fast people think they can be driving on the highway. The only time I see them doing the speed limit is right before the construction at Fort Wainwright Gate. And then they're all going the speed limit suddenly.
Paker Road, when they come up past the trooper station, they all slow down.
That takes us to the borough representative report, which happens to be me. I was able to attend that on the August 10th meeting. I included packets for all of the council members of the ordinances that were on the agenda that night. All of them passed for the most part. There was an ordinance that impacts our community, which is funding the Chena Lake bike pedestrian path project. It's providing a new access to Chena Lakes along Plaque Road. That's a $366,000 appropriation to develop that plan. I'm sure there are neighbors that are in that area that have some concerns, so I gave the clerk some extra copies of that ordinance for the staff to be looking at and be prepared if there's any phone calls about that. Also, there was another ordinance that passed, which was ordinance 2023-21C, appropriating $403,000 for the Pioneer Park North Parking Lot and Boat Launch Project. There is a boat launch right now currently off Pega Road, but it's a very dangerous driveway to get in and out with the amount of volume of traffic there. And so that's part of their long range plan to improve access to that boat launch at Pioneer Park. Another one that is of great interest to us is the increased funding for the improvement of air quality, especially out here in North Pole, for the solid fuel burning appliance removal. And they increased the amount of money for your change out in the packet. I'm just trying to look, see what. They are currently projecting I'm looking at this and trying to look at what that says here. Doesn't say, but they're doing the incentive rate projection as far as what incentives they're offering people to change out from wood stoves or from oil to gas or from wood to gas as the incentive to take those heating devices out. And then also I included information about the West Cup pool that Mr. Wallace has talked to us about earlier, just so you had some visuals of their planning and the challenges they have as they empty a pool and the ground pressure that gets placed on that pool lining in the process. So they have to do a lot of dewatering to get that done. And so that is not happening this year. It's been moved to next year, correct? No problem. I actually was able to give my report before the 7 o'clock when it went live. They had a shorter meeting than expected. So the presiding officer asked if, since I was the only representative there at the time, if I wanted to give the city report. And I said, sure. And so I did. And then they adjourned till the 7 o'clock meeting. And that's when Mr. Lojeski came up to me and said, you do know that that wasn't broadcast on the air. And I said, I didn't know that one way or the other what the rules were. So my report was not broadcast that night because I didn't know. I should have waited till after the 7 o'clock meeting started to give it. So if you were waiting to hear something from me, you didn't. And it was because I said it before they broadcast. And that concludes my borough representative report.
Is that something that they should like advise you before you like say something or and open up your 5-minute?
Yeah, that was, I found that a little bit
Is it like a bait and switch?
unusual that, they got me to give my report and then afterwards they said, oh, by the way, I was like,
Okay.
I might have thought differently what my
No.
answer would have been.
I'll take note for this Thursday.
Yeah. So if they give you the opportunity before 7 o'clock, it is not broadcast. So
It's similar to being here, but theirs is not taped. It's like when we have our 6:30 to 7. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
So if you
Right.
get there that early, that's what you're doing.
Right.
Because their meeting starts at 7,
and
and that's when you're being broadcasted.
I always listen into the whole thing, and every time they've asked me about that, and I'm on blank, so they don't even ask me most of the time. Since I've been doing it on Zoom most of the time, just say, nope, I'll wait till you broadcast.
pointers. So who is our next borough representative?
As myself.
Mr. Keller.
So anything that we need to bring up or discuss?
Ask if you want anything.
What I've always been told, I asked the mayor, or I asked the clerk, whatever, is there anything specific that we need to do? I pretty much use whatever we had the previous meeting. So whatever we did today, any special things that were brought up, sometimes I bring in the police report, sometimes bring in the fire report, especially when there's something that could benefit the whole, like, don't burn things out there, make sure you have your permits for fireworks, et cetera, or whatever, for burning and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the best way to give them a report for what people don't know about North Pole and why they should pay attention to us. And they all want to hear about what's happening with Three Bears. So
We could also talk about the upcoming municipal elections. We have 2 seats and 3 candidates and
Yep.
2 ballot propositions.
Just remember, you have 5 minutes to give your report. And if they do anything in the future,
their regular agenda that pertains to North Pole, you have a right to take part in not only the discussion, but also give them what we as an opinion are, and don't let yourself get.
Yeah, last time that was when the Man Show Mine discussion was on. I had to put my foot down a couple times, go, no, this is pertaining to me. I get to say something. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very important because their own rules say that if it pertains to that, and the old rules that they were trying to do had to be that we had to say something about that, we had discussed it or whatever. If it pertains to North Pole, we trust, as a council, we trust our representative to be not their own voice on something, but to be the council voice on it. And as we've already discussed that as a council, and if we choose you to go, you speak for the council as far as that goes. And I think.
Yeah.
That's,
It only makes sense.
it's not for them, it's not really for them to decide in that
I'm still
respect.
puzzled why they have muzzled the city representative reports and participation at the borough assembly meetings. I think over the years, our time involvement is so small that there was an overreaction to one city representative, not from North Pole's lengthy report one time, that this was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction that suddenly we were limited to 5 minutes and we can't talk about anything else on their agenda unless we voted as a council to talk about it at the borough assembly meeting, and or now as it pertains, if it pertains to something in North Pole, and it's like, why do you want us there? Kind of a deal. So thank you for your vast experience going through that whole process and explaining it to us who are taking on the roles of being the borough representative, with which you did consistently for over a year, at least that I can recall.
Almost 3 years, almost 3
Almost
years.
3 years you
Yeah.
are our borough representative. So that's a long track record and a lot of time that you spent at borough assembly meetings, whether it was on Zoom or in person, representing the city. So thank you for that 3 years of service as our borough rep.
Well, it was a lot of fun to participate in it, and I would do it again if I had to. And next month, I guess I have 2 because I switched with you this time around. So appreciate it.
You bet. All right, that moves us on the agenda to new business, which is consent agenda. So ordinance 2310 has been adopted when we amended the agenda to consent. So the police department budget has been amended as presented, and we have nothing under new business. So we now move on to council member comments. Madam Clerk.
All right, Mr. Skips.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cock.
I have nothing to say.
Thank you. Mr. Keller.
Another reminder to get things ready for the winter that's coming. I think this weather is a good teaser. I'm gonna have to check my heating oil and look at those prices for the heating oil. Septic HRV systems. So and then check your chimneys. Make sure they're swept out before we start burning again. All too often we have too many fires because they haven't been cleaned in over a year or more. And we like to see our firefighters, but we don't like them that way. Even though they do get a good adrenaline rush for those things. But let's look out for our neighbors too. With school starting, has started, just make sure that you pay attention to the little ones. I guess see a lot of bike riders, kids on ATVs and a motorcycle still before and after practices as well. Making sure we're looking out when we're driving. Make sure we pay attention to school zones, even though some of them aren't properly marked as of right now. And just be patient. So that's our future that we're looking at. So, and with that, I yield.
Thank you. Mrs. Welch.
Yeah, I guess I will, as usual, hype on the safety around the schools too. Being out there every day on the front line with the kids when people drop off. I see way too many people getting way too impatient because they have to wait for about 3 or 4 minutes for getting up to the point where it's safe to unload or safe to load your children. So I know it cannot be only our school at Hunter where I work for the last 22 years that have that issue, that parents need to have that. I don't know how much time they're going to save by all of a sudden decide that they are going to call kids out into the third lane. Come on, Junior, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Because they don't want to pull in and stop. And I have Junior running out past the fence line, trying to run out in traffic when somebody else is trying to leave. So please instruct your children and follow the rules yourself that you have to stop fully before Junior leaves the sidewalk, because it's too easy for them to, especially with snow and stuff coming and ice, it's too easy for them to slip. I have in my period probably pulled at least 6 or 7 kids that were going to get run over as they came out, and they slipped and slid underneath the vehicle and just grabbed them by a hood and pull them back out because mom did not even realize they were there. So I would say that that is really important. There was one more thing I was going to say, but it kind of escaped my mind. So I shall yield till next time.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch. I echo the comments of Mr. Keller and Mrs. Welch regarding preparing for winter and also improving our safety, whether we're drivers or walkers or bicyclists out there. In the last several weeks, there's been a cow moose with a young calf that's been wandering between subdivisions. It's been over by my house behind North Pole Hotel. The other day I saw the cow and her calf over by the old North Pole Library location. And there have been people stopping and taking pictures, which is certainly fine, but it's important if you are not in a car to stay away, because a cow moose is very protective of her calf and can move extremely fast and can do serious damage to a person with their hooves. They could actually kill you with just one kick. So it's really important to respect that wildlife is wild and unpredictable. Even though they look cute and you want to get that great Alaskan photo and you're sneaking up on them to get that perfect shot, it may be your last picture you take. I also want to thank Owen for your time here as an intern and wish you well in your last year of university, senior year in Minnesota. And again, thank you for all that you've done and safe journeys home.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
By Mrs. Welch, seconded by Mrs. Clack. We are adjourned. Not bad. If you made it before 8.